The automobiles that are manufactured here in Ontario have 50–60% parts from the U.S. going back and forth. The good news for the auto part manufacturers, they aren't going to be touched. I just got off the phone with the Prime Minister. I had a good conversation with the Prime Minister. He agrees 100%. We need to retaliate when it'll be both the Prime Minister and myself agree. Let's not do this till April 2nd. Let's see what's coming.
Right now, Mr. Trump doesn't respect the agreement Canada, U.S., Mexico. So we should request a full negotiation.
All of us are going to have to work together to get through this period of an economic challenge that we never asked for. But when it comes to patriotism, when it comes to the maple leaf and rallying around the flag, then I think every single Manitoban that I know is willing to step up.
Premiers there responding to U.S. President Donald Trump's latest trade move to impose 25% tariffs on foreign autos as of next week. The premiers collectively are set to meet with Prime Minister Mark Carney tomorrow to talk about how to respond if the tariffs are imposed. Saskatchewan's Premier Scott Moe is here to talk about that and his decision to kill the industrial price on carbon in his province as well. Premier, good to have you back on the program. I appreciate you making the time. I got to start on the tariffs. And get your view on the fact that Mark Carney, the Liberal leader, who is, at the moment today serving in his capacity as Prime Minister, not pulling the trigger on counter tariffs today, saying that he would essentially wait to make that decision until he spoke to the premiers and the tariffs are actually imposed. In your view, is that the right call?
Yes, and we've always said that we need to take a very measured approach to the things that the president says, because often there are nuances to some of the statements that he makes that seem quite outlandish, then they don't come into effect, or there's nuances that mitigate the impact of those. So we always have to take a very measured approach to the statements that are coming out of the White House, and also ensure that we understand we're a very diverse country in how we create wealth in various areas of the country, and so various tariffs are going to impact different parts of the country in different ways, and we need to have a full understanding of that as well. And so we should always be, and we've always said, take a moment, take a breath, and take a measured approach in our response.
Ultimately, do you think if those tariffs are imposed, that the federal government should take the remainder, for example, of the counter tariffs that are still on the table and impose them, if the tariffs are imposed?
Well, I think we have to see on what products, to what level, and what any of those nuances are. For example, if there's 50 or 60% in the automobile sector, 50% or 60% of that vehicle is built in the U.S., then it would be not subject to the tariffs. And so you have to figure out what the full impact of what being said and what being implied actually is to us before you decide on what an appropriate response should be. Should a firm response be necessary? I think we'll all work together to ensure that is the case as provincial leaders, and the Prime Minister was currently going through a federal election as well. That being said, we also need to understand at the subnational level, what our impacts are, where they are, and to what level they are. And so that takes a few moments after you hear whatever, quite simply rhetoric that comes out of the White House to figure out exactly what those full impacts are and to decide on and maybe not always agree on, but to discuss at least what a response is.
Let me ask you, when you talk about the subnational difference in impact, if I'm interpreting that in layman's terms, and correct me if I'm wrong, it means that if there's auto tariffs, they're going to impact Ontario way more, for example, than they would impact Saskatchewan. Will that inform your level of support of a national response? Like, could you be hesitant to support things that the federal government does because Ontario is more impacted, or is it an all-for-one kind of thing?
Well, we're seeing connections in this space. For example, one of the more urgent impacts that we're having in Saskatchewan is actually the tariffs from China on canola, 100% tariff, and that's a response to a Liberal policy on trying to protect the EV industry in Eastern Canada. And so we need to have the discussion about, what what are the impacts of a response? What are the potential reactions that might be? And we saw a reaction in this case that is going to have a tremendous impact on the Saskatchewan agriculture sector, really at the expense of protecting an industry that isn't that large, the EV sector in Eastern Canada. And so, that's where we are today. And I'm one of the voices at that table on behalf of the ag industry. But we need to ensure that we are having those same discussions when it comes to any potential tariffs that are coming out of the United States. They may have an impact on one area of the nation, and we do all support one another as Canadians, but we need to understand that, are there indirect impacts that could occur with counter tariffs, with responses to those counter tariffs, whatever that might be. And so it really is a much more complex discussion and a much more complex situation than maybe what it seems at the surface. It's not as simple as, just hitting back dollar for dollar or anything of that nature. It's much more complex, and it takes, a little bit more measured discussion and response, and which takes a little bit of time.
And I do understand that point, and certainly I think Canadians from coast to coast to coast are feeling a lot of sympathy and empathy for the farmers, for example, the canola farmers, the pork producers that are so distinctly impacted by those Chinese counter tariffs that you mentioned. But that policy that was pursued last year wasn't just about protecting the EV industry. It was following discussions with the United States under the Biden administration, who had national security concerns about the degree to which China was subsidizing an industry that they felt was very unfair. And Donald Trump feels the same way. Are you saying that we shouldn't be hard on China?
No, I'm saying that the Prime Minister of Canada should be reaching out to China, like they are to the United States, if they're truly serious about defending all of the jobs in Canada. That includes the farmers, and it includes the folks working in the canola industry. And so there needs to be an equal response on behalf of all Canadians from whoever the federal government is and whoever the Prime Minister is. And I'm not sure we've seen a commitment to that to this point.
But reach out to China how? I mean, they are essentially an adversary at this point. They detained 2 Canadians for more than 1,000 days. Like, what kind of outreach should you conduct with a human rights record like the one that country has?
Well, by that they're also an export market, as is the United States, as is India, and I think at some point we've and media, many media places have said that they're all adversaries. Most certainly, when you look at the United States of America and the rhetoric that comes from the president, I don't think anyone would believe, if you looked at the last 2 or 3 weeks, that historically the United States of America is our largest trading partner and our largest ally. It doesn't seem like that, and it doesn't feel like that as a Canadian the last number of weeks. The fact is we have export markets around the world, and you may not agree with much of what they do. However, you do need to have a relationship with them to some degree, or at least be able to make a call and say, listen, you have 100% tariffs on a couple of $1 billion of canola oil that's coming into that market. We're committed to, should we come through this federal election, having a discussion and a negotiation on how we can find our way through that to a much more free and fair trade environment. The same phone call, I think, and the same negotiation that is happening on behalf of not only the auto industry, but the steel and aluminum industry with the President of the United States. We don't have to like or agree with, other countries' views on a number of things, but if they are export markets, you have to have the ability to reach out and resolve differences when it comes to trade.
Okay, Premier, I ran out of time, and the commercial is, I can't not take it. I apologize. I wanted to ask about the industrial carbon price. I hope you'll join me again, and we can have a full discussion about your decision there, because I know you've now decided to remove the industrial side as well. I appreciate you making the time for our program this evening. Live TV, my apologies. Thank you.